Hey Joe, I think we finally got this working. And I know we've discussed some of this stuff via email, and you've already made some changes. But um, let's go ahead and look at first initially how your bike is set up. It looks like your bike is tipped up about 1 degree here, so I'm taking that into consideration. Looks like the bike's about a 74-degree seat angle bike, which is kind of slack for a triathlon bike. Normally we're seeing at least 76, and 78 is kind of the sweet spot usually. Um, the head tube angle does look to be about 72 if we add that 1 degree in there, which is good in that it's a fairly slack head tube, so that's going to help with the handling as you get a little farther forward on the bike. I see that you, as you said, you have pushed the saddle forward, so the nose is just about over the bottom bracket now. So that's not too bad. That's a good starting point for getting you a little further forward. But then the other thing that I'd pointed out is that you don't have much drop going at all to your pads, and that's, as you said, looks like some type of a profile bar there, and there's a lot of elevation on the pads, as some of their models do have. And I think I know that you've lowered the spacer, but we still don't have much drop here. And what you really going to want to consider as you go forward here is looking at a different kind of aero bar, assuming that there's nothing that can be done with lowering these. Something like a Vision Tech bar, which I've had great success with, where you can get the pads all the way down onto the base bar, and it also comes with a couple other spacers, so that you can get them higher if you like. But that would give you a good bit more drop. And as I discussed, about the starting point for a good aero position is typically about 15% of your saddle height drop to your arm pads, and the more aggressive positions are more in the 20% range. So for you, I had estimated you in the mid 70 centimeters saddle height, 75ish in there. So we would be looking at something like 11-12 centimeters of drop to get you into that 15% range. But we also need to make sure that your hip angle doesn't shut down too much when you do that. So let's look at you now on the bike. Okay, so first off, looking at your saddle height by analyzing your knee angle here, a couple of the measures I use. Before I said you looked a bit on the high side, and you moved the saddle forward a decent amount, which actually shortened you, and now you're looking, what I would say, good to a hair on the low side. So actually it wouldn't hurt to get these up a couple of degrees, these knee angle measures. So I would say just bumping the saddle up a little bit would probably be good for you. Now that you've got it forward, bump it up, say, just a half a centimeter or so, to just open that knee up a little bit more. Now, relative to the relative small amount of drop that you're using up front, I'm looking at the torso angle here. Basically, what I'm looking at is the angle of the front of your torso. Not people talk about having a flat back. Well, what really matters is what the wind sees, and the back's a trailing edge, so we want to see what the leading edge is, which is the front of your torso. And it's angled up about 20 degrees or so, taking into account the 1 degree tilt up on your bike. And what we see in the better positions is down in the sub 10 range. So that's a good bit down from where you are. But again, before we can make sure that you can get into that position comfortably and effectively, we need to also make sure that the hip angle is going to be right. So now let's look at how the hip angle is right now. Now the interesting thing here is that by the measures I use for hip angle, you're in the 98 range, which is good, but actually is on the somewhat aggressive side on a hip angle. So you really can't go much lower without going further forward. And so I could take these lines and move them down slightly, and get you down to 97. I don't typically try to set up anybody much tighter than about 97, because somewhere around 95 is usually where we start seeing a power loss problem. So you could go down if you had the ability, without going further forward, you could go down a tiny bit more in front. But really, to get a better, flatter position, you're going to need to be a good bit further forward. If I estimate, roughly where you're sitting on this bike, what angle you're sitting at right now. Again, we got to take that 1 degree. You are sitting at around a 76 angle, and usually what we need to see is something to get a nice flat position is something up in here, and so that is as you can see, quite a few centimeters further forward than you're sitting. As I said, we don't really want to close down your hip angle any much more than it is. So unfortunately, I think what we're going to have to look at to get you further forward on this bike is a forward seat post, and that could be the profile makes one. You could even try a seat post where the clamp is just centered, which would get you a couple more centimeters, but it probably wouldn't get you all the way forward to where you need to be. Now, from a reach standpoint, things are looking pretty good right now. You looked a little bit stretched before you moved the saddle forward, but now I like the angle of the upper arms, and I think the reach is pretty good at the moment. But we're getting back to the point where what we really need to do is get you more aero, and I'm going to show you a comparison here to give you a better idea of what I mean. So this is a shot of Terenzo Bozzoni from the 70.3 World Champs last year, and he's got a nice position, not super aggressive, but a very nice flat position. And what I'm comparing here is the effective frontal area that the wind sees as you're going down the road. And so the distance between these two lines is essentially the flat frontal area that the wind is seeing as you're riding down the road. If you look at Terenzo's position, he's got it closed down to where there's very little frontal area that the wind is seeing. So to maintain the same speed as him, you'd be doing a lot more work than he is. So what we want to do, ideally, is get that closed down by flattening out that angle. And, him from a torso angle standpoint, he is probably, like I said, he's got to be in the single digits. Let's see if we can get an angle on that here. But it's easy to see that there you go, 5 degrees roughly. So that's the kind of thing we want to aspire towards. And he's quite far forward over the bottom bracket. If we can get a rough idea here, he's probably sitting, depending exactly where we draw this line, he's probably sitting 80-81 degrees, which isn't common. And as I say, with you're sitting maybe 75, 76. So that's the difference. And you can also see the amount of drop he's using here is quite a bit versus a very small amount. And really, what we're working towards here, if we get at least in that 15% range, I haven't met a fit athlete yet who can't handle the 15% drop if it's done properly. And that's, again, not in the extreme range, it's just starting to get into the good range. When we're talking about serious amounts of drop, a Torbjorn or somebody like that, we're talking over 20%. We got Coach Patrick somewhere in the between 15 and 20% drop as a percentage of his seat height. So it's all very doable. Basically, we're going to take this exact same. What we want to do is take this exact same position that you have, and just rotate it forward and up here and down in the front, rotate it around the bottom bracket, and don't change anything. And you can imagine you have a nice straight flat back, and if we get this rotated and angled, you're going to have a very nice flat aero position, or you could. So that's a summary right there of everything. You could stand to get the seat up just a tiny bit from where it is, But what we really want to do is look at, can we get the front down and get the seat forward, and that's going to require a different seat post on this bike, and it's going to require probably a different set of aero bars. So let me know what you think. Please ask me any questions about the equipment options, and if you have any questions about exactly what to change, what to use to try to obtain this position, and how to install anything like that, I'll be happy to help you with that. And then, of course, once you go about starting to make these changes, get me another video, and we'll get you basically set up as good as we can. So thanks a lot, and I'm glad I finally got this to work out. Joe, thanks.